Well, I'm going to just get started and just ask a few intro questions as people are coming in, just to get a sense of where people are in terms of Office products, Outlook, JavaScript, HTML. So who here uses Microsoft products? Well, that's good. I'm glad there's, who doesn't? For the couple that don't, I would say that what I'm going to show is possible with the other major carriers as well. Everybody's kind of doing this thing. We actually switched from Google to Microsoft because of the better integration with FileMaker Server. It works really great with FileMaker Server. And then this add-on platform has really taken off, and it's become another thing that's just a really nice advantage with Microsoft. For people who have Microsoft stuff, how many use Outlook, or do you use some other client? Outlook? So we switched to Outlook primarily for what I'm about to show you. It's pretty powerful. Like I said, I think Gmail has a similar functionality, but the Gmail native clients just aren't as fun. So we went to Outlook. The web app, I use the web app most of the time, but I also use the native iOS client and the native desktop client. So how many people have built a web page, HTML, JavaScript? Awesome, that's great, okay. How many people have used the command line? Oh, that's really great. Awesome. If I'd said this 3 years ago, it would have been like 2 hands in the room. I said this a couple years ago in one of my talks. I said, you shouldn't worry about the command line. It's just like texting to your applications. I mean, really, it's all it is. You're just typing text and you get responses. I actually think it's a really great interface now that I've gotten used to it. It's very simple. There's only one thing you can do. Type, and that's it. So we're going to be looking at some, how about JavaScript code? So your HTML, but who's written some JavaScript? Ah, that's great. Node.js, back-end stuff? Woohoo! That's great. You know, for those of you who may not know, FileMaker Server, the REST API, the data API, is a Node.js Express application that's doing all the data API. So it's installed on the server now, and it's sort of kind of not replacing PHP in terms of you can still use PHP with FileMaker, but it's taken that spot that PHP used to hold in the FileMaker platform. And it's a lot of fun. So it's about 5, so we'll get going. We're going to look at Microsoft Office add-ins. And so I should just start off by saying this is a huge and extremely deep topic in terms of they work with all of the Microsoft apps. So you can build add-ins for Word, PowerPoint, Excel, even OneNote, and I think Microsoft Teams now as well. So we're not going to be covering the breadth of what you can do here. That would take us a whole conference. And we're not going to be covering the breadth of what you can do even within a single app. We're going to be just looking at the basics here. What my goal really is to just get people to understand what's possible. If I have a mission lately, it's to dispel the myth that FileMaker can't do X, whatever it is. There's frankly very little that FileMaker can't do. It hasn't been able to figure out how to bake my favorite cookies yet, but give it some time. We'll get there with the machine learning stuff and AI that's coming. But seriously, no, I mean this. I really do mean this. Like, I really, people come up to me all the time and tell me, well, I don't think FileMaker can do that. And I just say, baloney. It can do it. And the reason it can do it is because it's adopted a lot of the standards that the rest of the internet web platform uses. So if the internet can do it, FileMaker can do it. So that's another way to think about it, because FileMaker is a first-class internet citizen now. So that's my goal here. It's not necessarily to teach you. You may not come out of here knowing how to make an Office add-in, but you'll know that it can be done, and you'll know how to get started, and you'll know where to go and what it looks like when you do that. So that's my goal. Let's get going. So for those of you who don't know, I'm Todd Geist, founder of Geist Interactive. We do consulting, we do products. We got a booth downstairs. Hopefully you stop by. If you haven't, please do. We've got a bunch of fun products that we released recently. Auto, which is DevOps for FileMaker, so it does fully automated server-to-server data migration, file migration. So we can go from development servers to production servers just a push of a button. Super sweet. LedgerLink is our QuickBooks solution. FM Perception is our real-time developer intelligence tool. How many FM perception users I got out there? And what about the rest of you? No, just kidding. I'm a founding member of the FBA Partner Council. That's been fun, and I'm stepping down this year, and if you're in the FBA and you're going to be around tomorrow, you should definitely check out that session where we're going to talk about how that's gone. Also, just to mention, I'm the founder and president of the board of OneSpark Foundation, which is a nonprofit educational nonprofit in Thousand Oaks, California. So we are a private learning academy. So we don't even call ourselves a school because we don't want any regulation at all. We like nothing. We don't want anybody to tell us anything about how to teach kids because we're pretty good at it and we know what we're doing. And it's a very open and very creative space. And we've been doing that now for, this will be our 8th year coming up. My wife is the executive director. She was a public school teacher for many years, got frustrated. We founded a charter school and got frustrated with that and went out and now we're just a private learning academy. And kids come to us full-time or part-time, and it's been a great experience. And Geist Interactive is a major corporate sponsor of that, and we also provide a lot of back office services for that. So I've already kind of talked about this high-level overview of add-ins. We're going to try to build one here live. We'll see how far we get, and we're going to try to connect that to a FileMaker server. Let's start out just with some high-level overview. So the first thing to know, or first way to approach an Office add-in, is it's a lot like FM web viewers. Okay, we all know that you can take a web viewer, you can plop it on a layout, you can give it a URL, and it will display the web page at that URL. Right? That is essentially, well, it pretty much is what an Office add-in is. It is just a web viewer, and whatever it's pointed at, it will display. That's it. You can all go home now. Those web viewers are placed inside the Office application. Now, unlike FileMaker, you can't place it anywhere you want within the native app. There are defined slots that you can say, I'd like to put my window over here, or I'd like to put it over here, and each application has its own little areas where you can put these buttons. You can put buttons or panes, other types of UI in there. But it's really just a web viewer. I want just to think about that. It's just a web viewer, and wherever the URL that's in that web viewer is pointed is what it's going to load, okay? So that's the simple part. If you can make HTML pages, you can make an Outlook add-in or any other add-in. There are some trickier parts in terms of just learning how to get the thing connected in there, but the basics of the display and the logic, like what you want to display in that web page, in that little add-on, how you want it to look, the styling, the CSS, what the JavaScript does, all that is normal web page stuff. So nothing, there's no C code to learn, there's no other kind of language you need to know other than what it would take to build a web page. The way that the native applications, or all of the applications in Office are connected to that, or how you tell the Office application what you would like to load where, is done by this manifest file. And this is the trickiest part. And I won't lie, it's a lot of XML, and it's like just a wall of XML, and it can be a little tricky to dive in there and figure it out. Luckily, there are some tools that can help generate that and get it set up for you so you can get started quickly. But this is the trickiest part, figuring out that XML and how to slot things together. But what it basically does is it says, hey, that little web viewer, I'd like to display it in the Outlook app. I'd like to display it as I'd like to have a button. And when that button is clicked, I'd like it to open a panel on the side. And I would like it to have access to these things within the Outlook app, like who sent the email, the content of the email, that kind of thing. Are you in read mode or are you in compose mode, read or write mode? So you're basically just describing to Outlook where and when you would like your little window to open up, okay? And that's a simple thing, but it's a fairly complex file. We'll take a look at it in a minute. Yeah, so that's pretty much that. So the other piece of this is Microsoft Office has a JavaScript library that is used to talk to all the applications. And it doesn't do much good if you just load it into a regular web page. It's not connected to Outlook. It's not connected to PowerPoint or to Word if you just load it into a regular web page. But once you load it inside of an add-on, it gets its superpower. So that Office library can do things like read the contents of the email, write emails. When an email is sent, it can intercept that email and do some stuff to it and send it on its way. And that's all done via these JavaScript libraries. And there's one library, but it works for all of the apps. So as you can imagine, there's a lot to it. And we're not going to dive in too far there. We're going to keep it pretty simple. But that's how it works. So there's an Office.js library, and so you write JavaScript code that can talk directly to the host application that you're inside. So if you're in an Outlook add-on, you can write some little JavaScript code that can say, give me the email address, right? That's that. So we've got, the parts we have are the JS library. That goes in the HTML page. The HTML page is loaded into the add-on, and that happens based on the XML manifest. That's it. Actually, before we build one, let's actually look at one, because I don't know how far we'll get. We're going to try to get all the way through, but what I'm going to do instead is show what this looks like. So let's start here. So I'm in Outlook. I've got an email thread here. It's actually one of the biggest challenges I had getting ready for this is how am I going to demo an email application without showing all the junk in my inbox? So it's a little interesting. So this is an email thread I kind of created for this purpose, but the idea being that one more thing to show. So what are we going to do? So let me set the stage one more step up. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a little add-on that will be able to read the email address of the sender of the email. It will query a FileMaker database using that email address and display a list of the invoices that email address has been involved in, so the customer, basically. Does that make sense? Wouldn't that be cool if you could do that? You're looking at your email message and go, hey, this guy spent a lot of money with me. Maybe I'll be nice to him or to her or whatever. This guy hasn't bought anything. Well, just, spam, whatever, that kind of thing. But I should say it's not just reading. We're going to look at reading because it's fairly simple, but you could do something like, hey, this email is very interesting to me. I want to start a lead in my FileMaker system by just clicking a button and say, bring this email into my system with the contact information and all that. So it's two-way. It's just like, again, like any other web page. You can put a form in there. You can do all that kind of stuff. We're just going to look at a simple query, go out to the FileMaker database, give me back a list of invoices, and show those invoices. Sound good? All right. So I sent a message to my demo account. We're going to DevCon, the biggest workplace innovation conference in the world. Yes, it is. So demo says, yes, I am going. I so need a workplace innovation platform. Check out up here in the corner. See that? That is one of our icons. That is the icon we have for our LedgerLink QuickBooks file. So this is our product LedgerLink, which connects to QuickBooks, but it's also a simple little free demo file, and I will include it in the downloads, and you can use it with or without connecting it to QuickBooks for free. Well, if you connect to QuickBooks, you got to pay us, but if you don't, you can just use it for whatever you want. So it's pretty simple. We just have, so there's the nice logo. So we have dashboard, and we have customers, we have estimates, invoices, etc. So that's the database, okay? So, and let me actually drill in one more step. We look at invoices. So I've got in here this demo.geistinteractive.com billing email address. That's what that is right there, all right? So if my Outlook add-in works, we should see a list of invoices that includes this one here. I'll click this, and I have to log in, and there we go. Okay? So amazing, it's like magic. I mean so think about what we just did there. We didn't leave Outlook. We quickly and easily were able to go and get the information from our FileMaker database. That seemed pretty cool? Okay, but how about this? Well, okay, but Invoice 101, what the heck was that? I don't know. That's actually the invoice just opened up. That wasn't very amazing because this was showing. Let me hide this and let me do it this way. There, that's the invoice. So not only do we see the list of invoices, but we can quickly drill in and get to our invoice. So, think about what we would have had to do in years past to get this kind of integration. We would have had to first build an email client, right? First build in FileMaker a way to read all your emails. How many people have done that? That's it? Man, I think I built like 5 of them, and I knew I was going to get it right the next time. But the fact is that, your email clients are pretty good, right? They're pretty darn good. And being able to, rather than having to rebuild an entire an entire email client to just be able to link to my invoices, well, let's just link from Outlook to those invoices, okay? So it gets a little more interesting. So that's the native client. That's the native desktop client. The same, so this is the desktop, the web client. See, I've got this couple little icons here for add-ins. These are a couple different add-ins. I've got a FedEx add-in here. I've got this Boomerang add-in, which lets me send messages later and a few other things. And I've got my ledger link. So I click that. You can do single sign-on. I didn't do this for the demo, but the same thing, right? So we have the same experience in the web client and in the native client, right? Click that, we get our invoice, right? Pretty cool. Okay, one more. Let me see if I can get this to switch. Let's see. I think I'm on. Let me see that this works. There we go. So here's the native Outlook client on the iPhone. See the little lookup invoices there, ledger link logo. Same thing. And there's invoices there. Okay? So to me, this is pretty rocking, right? I mean, you can build very simple add-ons that don't take a lot of engineering to get to work, and then you can deploy them across the entire, and this, by the way, this works on Mac and Windows too. The Windows browser clients, the desktop clients, the Android clients, all work the same way, which is pretty awesome. So we see this as just a great way to add value to the solutions that we build. Anybody who's using Office, we can do some pretty neat stuff. WebDirect really isn't a play here because WebDirect is just a FileMaker client. We're talking about these Outlook add-ins are connecting straight to the data API in FileMaker Server. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to unload that add-on. So just to look at how we do this, so how you load add-ins and unload them. First thing I'm going to do is going to get rid of this copy of it from my web client, and then we're going to make a new one. So if you click, I don't know if I didn't say that. Let me start over there. When you click, you can do this there are ways to do this on all the clients. I'm going to focus on the web client for now because it's the easiest to deal with, but this will work in all cases. There's a place to do this. So we're going to manage add-ins under the gear. Click there. We go to admin managed. So the way that you can deploy these as an admin, or you can deploy these as a user. So and you can actually force your users to use an add-in. And so what's nice about that is that you can have add-ins for Outlook that do things like automatically BCC stuff to other accounts based on like if they use certain words in the email. So you can actually do some compliance stuff just by doing that. Or if an email comes in or out that has a certain number pattern in it that might be one of your invoice numbers, you can actually have it talk to a database and create a record like this email went out for that invoice kind of thing. So you can actually tell for your entire domain, you can say every user must have this add-in installed. Or you can offer that to them so they can install it if they want, or they can install it as a user themselves, just for them. So we're going to remove this one, get it out of here. And so that's an admin managed one. All right, so I don't have any, these are the add-ins that I've installed as a user, and these are the admin managed ones that are available to my domain, to me, that have been given to me by my admin, who also happens to be me, which makes it confusing. All right, so we've removed that, so it no longer appears here, right? So I don't have access to that anymore. Okay. Quit that. We're not going to show that anymore. Quit that one. Hide the slides. Okay, it's code time, my favorite time. So I'm going to start in the terminal. So Microsoft is doing more and more to create a lot of tooling around their platforms. So they've given us a lot of generators and validators and different ways to help us build these things. Because getting it set up the first time is not an easy thing. They've used a very common generator called Yeoman. Anybody use Yeoman out there? Just a couple people. So it's just, what is it? It's like, well, it's a generator. It's like scripts that writes code, basically. That's what it is. And you download it and install it. And I have documentation links in here for everything that I'm about to show you, and I'll make sure that it's in the slides, and we'll cover that at the end. But once you install it on your computer and your terminal, you just type Yo Office. Yo Office, right? I'm going to click that. And if the internet is working, if it's not working, it's going to be a short presentation, I'll tell you that. It says, hey, welcome, and choose the type of project you'd like to create. We're mostly a React shop, so we do any web publishing stuff that we do with React. But I'm going to keep it simple and just use some jQuery, straight up jQuery. But if you're React or Angular fans out there, they've pre-created some scaffolds to get you set up and running. So we're just going to use the arrow keys to select the Office add-in project using jQuery framework. I'm going to choose JavaScript. TypeScript is simply a strongly typed variant of JavaScript for those of you who care about that sort of thing. I like JavaScript just fine, although TypeScript's nice and fun too. And what I want to name my add-on DevCon. I'm going to name it DevCon because I'm so original. And let's see, which application would I like to support? So I'm going to choose Outlook. And it says it's all done, it's installing. So what's happening now is it's using NPM. If you've done Node or front-end JavaScript work recently, you're familiar with NPM. You're familiar with this process of installing JavaScript libraries from the NPM repo. And so that just automates that whole process of setting up the project for us. Then it kind of gives you some instructions. We've created it. You're going to want to launch your web server using npm start. We'll do that in a second. And then we're going to sideload the add-in into your Office application. And I have, again, documentation on all this, and we're going to do it right here. So I'm going to dump out of Terminal, and I'm going to open up VS Studio Code. And I'm just going to drag my folder on there. So I'm in that terminal. So I apologize. I couldn't figure out how to make these any bigger. The text, when I open it up, is going to be bigger. But I'll try to zoom in and see what we have here. So this is what it's created. So if you've done front-end development recently, modern stuff, this will look a little bit familiar. If you haven't done web dev in a while, this might look a little weird. Yeah, it just sort of is the way it is. It can be a little daunting at first, but the tooling is so awesome, and there's so many resources out there that it's kind of worth getting into it. So we've got an index HTML page, which is the root of our little add-in we're going to get. And we've got some JavaScript in here, and we've got some search. I'll explain that in a minute, and some assets, icons, and things that they've all generated for us. And then here is that nasty manifest I was talking about. It's, what is that? I have no, it's, it might as well be like this for me. But you can go through, and it actually does sort of make sense. Like, if you look down here, I can say it says provider name, and, that is the person, that's the company making this, so we'll put in Geist Interactive there. And we'll change a few of these things in a little bit. But this is literally the trickiest part. And I know I'm emphasizing that, but I don't want people to look at this and know that it's tricky for everybody. Like, this is only people who write their notes in XML really are fluent at being able to read this stuff. And it just takes a little bit of time to just work through what each of these little things is and what they need to be filled out to. So don't let it discourage you. This is the complex part, and if you can figure out how to get this working, the rest of it is downhill from there. So, but we got some instructions when we did this, so I'm going to go ahead and follow those instructions. Unusual for me, I know, but we're going to do it. It said first to run npm start, which is just that. So this is a terminal open up on the bottom of my text editor here, and it's in that same folder. So I can also know a little bit about that, because one of the nice things about modern JavaScript is you can always look at package.json and look at the scripts here, and it will kind of give you the things that you can do. Start it, build it, validate it, sideload it. So these are kind of the commands you can run with npm, one of them being start. Click npm start, and it is going to build up a thing here. So we're going to get some errors, and I should have mentioned this, I meant to in the beginning. We are definitely going to get errors as we do this. This was part of the thing that really stopped me for years when I did web dev, which is I saw these errors and I went, I give up. I just walked out. That's it, done. Really, it's sort of interesting. Errors are just part of how you work. It's like, oh, it didn't work. Well, let's fix it. And then, well, that didn't work. Well, let's fix it. And then finally, there's no errors. You're like, yay, you work, and then there's more errors. Like, oh, God. And then that's the process. It's not glamorous. Okay, it doesn't work perfectly. There's no magical way around that. That is the process of web dev. You try stuff, it throws an error, and you fix it. And at first, it can be a little bit daunting, but I don't know, you get used to it. So this says that the port is in use. It says port 3000. Anybody want to hazard a guess on what's using port 3000? something that you have all installed, probably, FileMaker Server. So remember I said FileMaker Server is using Node.js? Yeah, so it's Node.js running. I have FileMaker Server running on this machine, and it is got the REST API running, and guess what? That's running on port 3000. So I got to use a different port. And I, again, documented the things that I'm about to do here, so you don't have to necessarily worry about writing all these down. But in my start command for NPM, we've got a list of things that happen. At the very end, it's got this -- port 3000. Well, that's a clue, right? We kind of know what that is. So we're going to change that to 5000, and then we'll save that, and we will run it again. And there we go. It says compiled successfully, and it gave us a URL. And if we go to that URL, which is just localhost, hey, look at that. So we've got a web page up and running. So now we have to get it into the, one thing I didn't cover here. So what you're going to get the first time you do this is a cert error. Oh, actually not here. You notice it says secure, the green lock up here. This is actually one of the things that's kind of becoming a real big deal of late. As we all know, FileMakers now has heavy support for SSL, for FileMaker client, and for, with the certs on server and all that stuff. And that's because more and more people are simply saying, no SSL, no service. So you pretty much have to have SSL to be able to do a lot of things, including Outlook add-ins. You're not going to be able to load an asset, any web page that's not SSL, which if you think about it makes a lot of sense, right? You wouldn't want people to be able to load insecure web pages into your Outlook app. That could probably be bad, right? So it's SSL. The real problem is when you're doing development, localhost is not usually cert. You don't usually have a cert for localhost. So one of the things that you get here, I'm going to have to really speed up, but one of the things they give you are some certs. When they generated this project, they gave you some certs for localhost. And they give you some instructions, which I've got. So they give you instructions about how to deal with it. And it basically just means you take the cert on Mac, you just double-click it, load it into the keychain, and say you're going to trust the site, and then that will work, and you won't have that problem. But this will stop you if you don't do this. And I've already done it, so I don't need to do that. But that is the thing that you need to do. And it has for Mac and Windows instructions for all that. Once you've trusted that, you only need to do that really the first time you ever do this. After that, you've got a cert for localhost that is trusted. So localhost will always be trusted after that. So there's that. So the next thing we have is, what we have to do now is, we're going to go to Outlook, and we're going to load this manifest. And the way we do it is we go in here to Manage Add-ins. We go My Add-ins, and we can say Custom Add-ins, and we can add from a file or from a URL. What you want to do is choose File. Now, if I do this right now, I'm going to have some issues, so I'm going to back up a second. Basically, what we're going to do here is pick the XML or poke it, pick the manifest out of the folder here, and we're going to load it into Outlook. And Outlook will then look at all the stuff in there and figure out where to go get the web page and all that. But we have a couple issues. If we look at the manifest, and remember that it was originally set up to be at port 3000. Let's take a look at this, for example. So here, this source location, this is what is saying, hey, load that little web viewer from that web page. Everybody see that? So I've got localhost 3000 in there, and that's the problem, because we're on port 5000 because of FileMaker Server stealing my port. Grumble, grumble, grumble. So what we'll do is we'll do a little find and replace here, and we'll just replace that with 5000, and that should work. Okay. So now we should all be set up. All right? So that's our manifest. So let's load it into our Outlook. And let me just drag that on there. We're going to pick our DevCon manifest. We're going to load it and install it. And it's going to work, please. Oh, no. Let's see. Oh, so it tells you. So it gives you some validation error. So it says the support URL value in the manifest is not filled out. So you need to fill that out. Okay, we can do that. I guess they want to make sure that if the thing doesn't work, they know who to call. Don't call Microsoft. So I'm just going to search in here for that support URL. There we go. Okay. Save, and we'll try again. So now it's going through and validating that manifest, and there it is. So now we have our little dealy whopper. Pretty sweet, huh? Okay. So now, and dealy whopper is a trademarked word. You can't use that. So look at that. There's a little logo. Pops up right there. Okay. Click it. Yay! All right. So some cool things about modern web dev, which I really dig compared to the old Dreamweaver and Go Live days. Who remembers those? Remember Go Live? Yeah. Go Live. Is that this stuff is like, it's hard to do on this little small monitor, but I'll give it a shot. Well, so you can go into that index page, right? So here's the stuff, and we look down here, we can see all that. Like, we can see achieve more with Office integration. Well, really, that should be achieve more with FileMaker Pro. And look at that, just updates right there, right? That's pretty nifty, isn't it? Yeah? In the interest of time and getting a little further along, I am going to do some copy and paste. How's that? So first thing I'm going to do is just rip out most of this stuff because I really don't care about it. Let's get rid of really everything there. Boom. And we're going to make a, what are we going to do? We're going to do a div, and we'll give it an ID equal to app, and we'll just do that. And that's really all we need. So notice all that went away. Everything went away. That seems okay. So this is the HTML file that's generated for us, and then it also generates an index.js file here, which is where we can start writing some code. You can actually, this is going to be a little tough to do, but we'll give it a shot. The one issue, one of the things I don't like about this is you're getting errors from the entire Outlook app here, not your add-in. We don't have any errors or anything being logged. So this is all the junk that Microsoft is just dumping to the console, and there's some errors up here, and it has nothing to do with the stuff we're writing. So that's a little bit of a bummer. We can just start writing something else here just to make sure we've got something going. And we'll just say, hi there. And there, see down there in the corner? Hi there, okay? So all Office apps, so this is part of the Office API, JavaScript library I was talking about. And there's an initialize function that gets fired. It has to get fired on every page load. And so that's where we're going to start hooking in our code. What we're going to do here is we're going to ask Office context mailbox item. So what we're basically saying is, give me the current Office, the email that we're looking at, okay? And then to get the email address, we're just going to get item.from, the from address, email. All this stuff is documented. There's a ton of things you can get. They have lots of other interesting things, like you can have it find all of sort of the common things that robots are good at learning or can scan really well for, like addresses and phone numbers. And so you can actually get a list of all of the, what they call known, I think it's called known entities or known items from the email. So addresses and things. You can just pull that right out, right in your add-in, send it off to your database if you wanted to. So that's all we're going to do for now. So first thing is we'll just do, again, it's always nice just to be able to say email, right? Here we go. So you see down there? Demo. Pretty nifty, huh? That's not so much fun. Let's do something a little more interesting. Let's do, let's see, we've got jQuery installed. So I should be able to do, I'm not a jQuery per person, so somebody tell me if I get this wrong. I think we just do app, right? If I set up my index HTML with a, yeah? Have I got that right? Yeah. Thank you. We go back here, and we're just going to say, what? Text, email. Or let's do HTML. Look at that. There's our add-in. Pretty neat, huh? Okay, so the next part is pure just data API. And let's see, I'm going to do some more copying over some assets so we don't have to go through all of it, writing it, and I'll just talk some of it through. I've written, the add-in we looked at before is over here, and I'm just going to grab in some things from here. and then we'll look at them. I want to take this and this, and we'll drag these over into here. All right, so let's look at this file called FMS API. So what's going on here? So I need to be able to do a couple of things. I need to be able to log into the database. I need to be able to log out of the database. I need to be able to query for the emails. So we've got this login function. This is not how you should do it. Notice I'm passing the username and password right here. This is purely for demo purposes. So I can actually show this because one of the things you have to remember about JavaScript when you're writing front-end web pages is what? Is that code is in the page. Somebody can look at it and see that code, and they can see those passwords. So you need to use something like single sign-on or OAuth, which is a topic for another day. So that's all I did. And so what we got going on here is I'm using an Ajax library called Axios, and we're setting up some ops for Axios, which take this is the URL to the server. We're going to add in I've created an API that gets, one thing I forgot to mention is very important. Gosh, forgot all about this. So what happens if you try to talk directly to FileMaker Server Data API from a web browser? CORS, that's right. There are good reasons for that. There's good reasons why FileMaker chose to enable CORS on the Data API. And there are good reasons why browsers do not allow you to talk directly to data sources that aren't trusted. And so CORS is kind of is a security measure that is put in place. So what that means is you're going to need a proxy. You're going to need something in the middle that will take the request from the browser and either pass it straight through to the Data API, or you could create an API yourself and use that. But you're going to have something in the middle. And I would say that for people who are doing a lot of Data API stuff, you're pretty quickly going to find that you're always going to want to have something in the middle. Talking directly to the Data API is something that I would do only if I was in a hurry or was just trying to prototype things. If you want to put something in production, you should really have something else in the middle. And there's a lot of reasons for that, having to do with what you're trying to expose and what you don't want to expose, and making sure that you don't have like, for example, if you have fields in your database that have names, and your web page expects them to be certain names, and you change your field names, well, you just broke your web page, right? You just broke it. So having something in the middle is a place where you can go in and make those changes so your web page keeps working. There's a lot of reasons why you want a proxy, and you'll need one here. I'm using Auto, which is our DevOps product I talked about before. It has a free version which includes a free proxy. There are plenty of other free proxies. There's lots of ways to do this, and I'll make sure to include some links to some of those in the show notes or in the pre-zone notes. So that's why you can see I'm going through this port 3030 on our server. So that's what that's all about. And then we're going to generate a request. We're going to log in, and I'm going to store the token in local storage. Okay. I've got another one for log out here, which just basically clears out the. What else do I got going on here? I've got the request. This actually is the one that gets the emails, and we are getting the token out of local storage right there. We're creating the base URL. We're setting our headers. I'm console logging them just for debugging purposes, obviously, and then I'm making the request and returning the data back to the API. Except I added another one. So get invoices kind of wraps that, and so I just made a function that takes an email address, uses the request, and just returns back the invoices for that email. So that's a query there. So I've exported all those functions so that I can use them in another place. Let's use it here. So here we've got our email, and that's happening. That's fine. But let's also, at the top of our script here, we're going to import. So all I've done there, for those of you who haven't used modern, any ES6 stuff, is I've just imported the functions that I defined in this other file into this file. And this is a way to keep things nice and modular and neat. So we've got login in here, and this is just going to log us in. So I am frankly just going to run this at the top of this script, and then we won't have to worry about it anymore. Axios is not defined, and that is because I need to go over here. So Axios is just available on a CDN, so I don't have to worry about importing that or anything like that. And frankly, I don't know why I didn't just import it. Who knows? I was being lazy or something. But anyway, we'll just keep up with that same process here, and we'll load that on the page, and that should take care of that. Let's make this async. Async is a way of saying all of the APIs are returning promises these days with ES6. So a promise is a way of doing callbacks or asynchronous requests. If you label a function now in modern JavaScript with async, you can then use a simpler just sort of try-catch thing where you can just do this, and we can say constant, or let's just say, actually, let's do, yeah, no, this works. So constant invoices equals await, no T, const, await get invoices. The console log that out. So by using await, instead of having, even though this is asynchronous, it kind of just pauses there and it awaits the response. So now I can just get the response back and just dump it to the log here, and hopefully this will work. Oh, there they are. Woohoo! All right, so there's our stuff. We've got messages, responses. Here's our response data. I'll bring this up. So this is FileMaker. This is out of my FileMaker database. So you can at least see that we've got that far. I don't know how much. We're down to, we've got 10 minutes left. I can try to whip up a little bit of interface to display that, or do you want to move to questions? What do you want to do? You guys want to see some interface? All right, let's see what we can do here. So we've got our invoices. So let's do let's see. So we got our response. So let's try to parse that out a little more. I think it's response invoices.data will be the next level down. So now we've got response data. There we go. So let's do response.data. I'm just drilling down. Yeah, so let me just, I can probably get through this, but we're running low on time, and I do want to take more questions. So let me, I hope I've proven that you can get the data in there, and you've seen it in action. So, and if anybody wants any more details on sort of how we built that particular add-in, happy to come talk about it at the booth. So, so the question was a good one. So what can, as an email comes in, can it do anything? The answer is that it can. So you can actually define regexes to look for specific things within the email and then fire events based on that. You can also have it fire on particular, of course, whatever the email address is, the domain, anything you want as far as that goes. Does that answer the question? Was there more to that? Got it. Okay. Yes. Okay. So where do you define that? So a good, very, very, very good question. Thank you very much. So in terms of the events, where you define the events, that's all in the manifest file. So in the manifest file, you define what events you would like to get triggered on. And some of those would be something like look for a regex, and you put in the regex for that. And then you would associate a function to get called when that regex would get fired. That's all done in the manifest. No, I see. So if there's any, so in terms of, email comes in with spam, but the email is just text. It's not executed. The JavaScript that could be in there, and there's no JavaScript in those emails. There's nothing in the emails that could like pollute your stuff, except if you're like just dumping every email that comes into your database or whatever. Of course, that would be an issue. So you definitely want to filter. You don't want you may not want every email message coming through. So especially Excel is very interesting. Excel has what they call custom function add-ins. And so you could define a custom function that was sales by month. And just like how you would in Excel, you'd put all the months across the top, define that function and drag it across, and it would query your FileMaker database and pull that information in. And so again, the possibilities truly are endless, right? Because we're just talking about JavaScript, talking to the data API. So anything you can do in JavaScript, you can do in any of these scenarios. We're just running JavaScript. So charting with Excel, pulling in data with Excel, automatically writing Excel data back to the FileMaker database, all that stuff is all doable. Things like Word, where you might want to be able to pick clauses and pick template, certified copy out of a database to create a Word document, all doable. Mail merges, all doable. All that stuff is doable. Reading the email message, looking for content to automatically bring into your database for indexing, all doable. It's all there. I don't want to disable cores, and again, I guess the other reason is that I think that no matter what you do, eventually you're going to want to put something in between. So we have a proxy in place to do the simple stuff, but at the end of the day, I'm going to want to build something that has more intelligence in it. Like I don't want to expose I don't want my layout names in the APIs, right? I don't want them out there in the web browser. I don't want the layouts, the table names, the field names. I don't want that actually all the way out. Because what if I change it? I don't want to break it. If I was building this for real, what I would do is I would create an API that would be like basically get invoices. And it would have a route, get invoices. And that would talk to my FileMaker data API to pull that data back. Does that make sense? It's just a way of not letting that implementation detail leak out to the clients beyond that. And there are other reasons. It's just that when you look at it over the long haul, it's just, boy, eventually I'm going to want to build an API here. But we do provide a proxy, and you can use it. It works fine. Yeah.
Hey, Todd. Yeah, so speaking of the proxy, are you allowing cross-origin requests from Ajax, in other words, from localhost to a hosted proxy?
Yes.
Because at that point, now it's open, unless you're specifically whitelisting localhost or something like that. I mean,
yes. So, well, it's no less open than the data API, or no more open than the data API.
Well, except that doesn't allow cores. Your proxy is allowing cores, right?
Ports.
Cores.
Yes.
So, I mean, you could put the way to avoid.
So let me just stop right there. So the proxy is not the way I would do this. Okay, I wouldn't. The proxy is for how I would prototype this or show it in use. Again, if I was doing this, I would write a completely separate API.
Right, and I mean, basically, if you host the JavaScript from the same host as the proxy, then you can still leave cores.
You could do that. I never do that. I mean, I just in preference, I have the API is somewhere else, the static assets are somewhere else. So they're two different places usually. We are getting pretty technical, but the basic, so the proxy is what I consider just a workaround. I would build a full API to talk to my database for this project specifically to do that. Still more, if there's more issues, happy to talk about it at my booth or anywhere else. Yeah.
I don't think this is working.
It is.
It's okay.
Yeah.
There we go. I'm not as technical as most of the people here,
Yeah.
so this might be a simple question. But as far as deployment, you get the little add-on built,
Yep.
and then you want to deploy it to your clients and the rest
Yep.
of the office. Can you talk a little bit about
Yeah.
how that works?
So in terms of deploying a custom add-in to just you, that really, or just to your team, they just do that process I did where I loaded the XML file. You can also load the XML file from a URL. They can just install that and then it will work. If you want to go all the way out to the Microsoft Store, you could do that as well. And so you basically submit that XML file to the Microsoft Store. They're going to put it through a security review, and they're going to do it. And so in terms of deployment, the one more thing to say is that the assets that I put up for this one here, they're just static. They're just a folder full of web pages. It's just index and JavaScript and HTML. There was no server other than the proxy in place to do that. And so any web server can do it. You don't need to have anything particular to put those web pages on. Anything else? We're done. Thank you very much.